covering the political landscape along the I-4 corridor. Welcome to Political Connections.
We are back on Political Connections now, talking about transparency in the Florida legislature. Is it possible when it comes to fundraising? A lot of ifs being asked about that. Let's talk to Alex Snitker, who joins us right now from the Liberty First Network. Alex, you've been talking about this. You've been writing about it in your newsletter. So let's talk about the transparency. We have to start out by talking about how much money can I donate to a candidate that runs for office in the state of Florida?
As an individual, right now, what you are allowed to do is donate $3,000 for someone running for governor into their campaign account. And if they're running for state house or state senate, the limit that you as an individual are allowed to donate is $1,500. So in their campaign committee, that's the limit that they're in their campaign committee. That's the limit that they're allowed to have.
Now that's for the entire election. Even if there's a primary, let's say you donated $3,000 for the primary, then are you allowed to donate another $3,000 for the general or not?
No, that's true. That is the case. You can do $3,000 in one and $3,000 in the other. So you can do both of those.
Okay.
But in the article that I wrote, what we're talking about is actually something called political committees,
right,
which would be the equivalent of, if you look at federal PACs, where the federal PACs have an unlimited amount of money that you're allowed to donate. The difference between the federal PAC and what we're able to do in the state PACs is that the state political committees can be run by the politicians. So in those political committees, you can donate an unlimited amount of money into those committees.
Now why? Why unlimited?
Why is it unlimited?
Yeah.
They set the rule for that. That's just the way that they had set the rules, is that the rule inside this in these political committees is unlimited amounts. And the reason that they did it is because they want to be able to take big checks from special interest groups.
Well, so we know that, for example, in the upcoming gubernatorial election, we know that Disney has been writing some big checks, $400,000 here, $200,000, and kind of hedging their bets because they've been giving them both Republicans and Democrats as well.
Yes, and that is a common practice amongst a lot of places. What you'll notice a lot of times is that the political or the big corporation will donate a 60-40 split. 60% of it goes to the Republican PACs or political committees, 40% goes to the Democrat ones. And the reason why is because the makeup is 60-40. If the makeup is 60-40 up in Tallahassee, then they give according to what the makeup of the body of legislature, the legislative body is.
This whole idea of giving to a candidate, it makes an assumption, and I don't know whether this assumption is true or not. I tend to think in my heart that it's not, but maybe in reality it is. And the assumption is just because you give money to a candidate does not mean that that candidate is obliged to pass legislation that's in your favor.
Well, that's true. There's no contract that they can write that would say that.
Quid pro quo is what we sometimes call it.
No, you're right. However, and if you there was a segment that was done a while back, and this was when Will Weatherford was the speaker and Matt Gaetz was the was the president, and they said, well, we couldn't get bought for $500 because $500 was the limit at the time.
Right.
And I totally agree with that. $500 is definitely not something that you could be bought with. However, if somebody's sending you a check for $100,000, they are expecting something in return. Now, it may not be something that's written there as a contract, but it is something that's expected, that they're going to be expecting something. They want a return on their investment. And too many times we're noticing that bills that are going up there that these organizations would support are making it through when bills that they don't support aren't making it through. So their influence is definitely having an impact in what's going on in the election. And that's one of the reasons why I wrote the article and why we are trying to come up with at least some kind of a solution for this.
Okay, so I know that there have been some legislative proposals, but the way the Florida legislature works, if you can't get it through committee, it doesn't even get to the floor, you can't talk about it. And we had two proposals this time around that had to do with this kind of sharing of funds that didn't even make it to the floor.
No, last year there was two bills that were proposed, one by Senator Mayfield and Representative Gruters. And what this bill simply would have done would have stopped the ability of the political committees to transfer money from one political committee to another political committee. We call this the legalized laundering of the money, because what happens is a big corporation will give a lot of money to one PAC. Then that PAC, the political committee, will give money to another political committee, and then they'll give it to another political committee, and you can't really tell how the money funneled from one to the other than it was going from one committee to another committee. But they can say, well, I got that money from somebody else, so I'm not really beholden to that person. But what happens, though, is it does make it so that the representative is beholden to the other political committee that gave him that money. And they talk about it. Speaker Corcoran has come out and said, like, if he doesn't run for governor, then he's going to use the money in his political committee to give to other candidates. Well, he's not going to give it to the one that causes a $3,000 limit. He's going to give it to as much money as he can to the other PACs for those other people, and then those representatives will be beholden to help him get his issues forward.
So let's talk about this next legislative session. Do you have any senators or representatives that are lined up that say, you know, this practice has got to stop, and we're going to support the legislation, get it on the calendar, and at least get it voted on?
Yes. As a matter of fact, Senator Stubbe is going to be proposing this bill in the Senate, and Representative Gruters will be going at it again in the House. Last year, it was the first year that we did this, and this year we're going to put a lot more pressure on our representatives to get these heard in the committees and to see if we can actually get this for a floor vote, to make sure that we can get this kind of legislation passed, because there's a lot of things that you can do, but in my opinion, this is the first step. And the reason we picked this one first is because if you listen to what the Speaker of the House, Speaker Corcoran, has said, he's talked about transparency. This is right within his wheelhouse of what he's been talking about. So instead of trying to take on all the issues at once, we found the one issue that we thought we would find the most agreement for, and now we're going to apply pressure to see if they're people of their word and if they're going to do what they claim that they want to do.
And the bottom line is, just so people know, if I want to know what my particular candidate is getting for money and where it's coming from, is there a place where I can go to find that?
You can go to the Florida Division of Elections, and you can go and look on if you go to the campaign account part, you can see the money that's gone to their individual campaigns. The second part, and this gets a little more tricky, you have to know if there's a political committee that's associated with that candidate, and then you can look it up in that political committee as well. And the Division of Elections does have those reports available, and they're pretty good.
And lastly, who benefits the most if a policy like this is not passed? Who benefits the most? The party in power or the party that's trying to become powerful?
The party in power. The party in power definitely benefits more from that. But all of them don't. The establishment is who really benefits the most. Because if there's an uprising of another candidate within either party, Democrats or Republicans, is that this gives the ability for the establishment to make sure that they have retention for the representatives that they currently have up there right now.
Well, the one thing we know for sure, with so many candidates running for governor, there's going to be a lot of money spent, a lot of it tossed around with a lot of candidate spending, and it's going to be into them hundreds of millions of dollars even before we get to the general coming up in 2018. So it's going to be very interesting.
Well, yeah, and if people are watching this, when they see the reports that come out of Putnam getting all this amount of money, I think you should kind of view it a little suspect and realize that he's getting large checks from individual donors and not small amounts from a whole lot of different people.
But a lot of people are getting money too.
A lot of them aren't. It's not just him. No. Yeah, he's not the only one.
So as they say, keep your eyes on the cards where they're going to
Exactly.
All right. Alex Nitker, thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Al.